Unfortunately, I don't think this film's going to do very well. Not because it's a bad film necessarily. Hey everyone, Bruce from What's Popping here, and I just got out of a media screening of Disney's new Haunted Mansion film. So let's chat about it here, because I think we all know Disney needs a win at this point. Their last couple of films have not been super well received, and looking at their future slate of films, I think people are getting real tired of these live action remakes. So the Haunted Mansion is a reimagining of the classic Disney attraction in the same spirit as the Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm not saying this movie is comparable to Pirates of the Caribbean. I think Disney would do well to avoid turning this into a franchise kind of deal. This is a good one-off story that is kind of told within its own boundaries and draws on inspiration from the Disney attraction. I have been to Disneyland Paris and ridden Phantom Manor, thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the aspect of exploring the Haunted Mansion, and that's what this movie tries to do. It takes you on a journey across 4 or 5 different characters' perspectives of going through a haunted mansion, dealing with a haunting, putting them all in a situation where they have to work together, and then seeing it kind of resolved by the end of the film. So it is very entertaining, if not quite predictable, which you would expect from this, which is definitely aimed at a more family-friendly night out. Unfortunately, I don't think this film's going to do very well. Not because it's a bad film necessarily, but because it's coming out amidst Oppenheimer and Barbie and very little press off the back of the Writers and Actors Guild strike. And I just hope Disney don't take that lesson that this didn't work financially as the main lesson from here. Because there's a good movie in here. There is a lot of fun to be had watching this Haunted Mansion movie. I think that the cast did a really good job. It's a real case of no individual standing out too much. I think that LaKeith Stanfield, that's the one, did a really good job as the lead of this movie. And he did bring something to the role that made it feel more than just him being a generic lead in a Haunted Mansion predictable semi-thriller. He really brought a bit more gravitas to the role. He did have a really good presence on screen, and I found some of his scenes where he got emotional to be quite compelling. I thoroughly enjoyed him on screen, and when he had the time to shine, he definitely took those moments, but when it required more of an ensemble character performance from everybody in the scene, he faded into the background, and I think that's something he did very, very well. The film, ultimately, while being a fun romp through the Haunted Mansion, is centered heavily around a theme of grief, and I think that is something that's really refreshing from a Disney perspective, in that it feels like it's a movie made for everybody, which is something that I really, really enjoyed in this film. I left the movie thinking about the human condition and the human spirit and how grief affects us and how we need to learn to accept things and try and move on with our lives, and that is a central theme that is hammered home throughout this film. Owen Wilson gives a great performance. He basically plays himself in the same role that he plays in so many other films. Not a lot of wows. He didn't really wow. There weren't a lot of those, but he was very Owen Wilson-y in this film. And Danny DeVito as well, for his part, he was fun. He was dynamic on screen. He was interesting. And he did play this quirky, wacky kind of character, which was necessary to the plot. I think that what the film might have lacked a little bit of, and where it definitely gets dragged down, is the runtime. It is over 2 hours, which I think is way too much for this movie. I think they could have easily sliced off a good 15-20 minutes of the end of the first act, beginning of the second act. The movie should feel like the Haunted Mansion itself is a character. And like I said, on the ride, the fun is exploring the Haunted Mansion. So in the scenes where we have Rosario Dawson and her son who have moved into this new mansion and they're exploring it, those are the moments where you feel like, what's around the next corner? What's going to happen? Am I going to see this iconic character? And yes, if you're a fan of the ride, bring your bingo cards, because you're going to be ticking off references, Easter eggs, and throwbacks left, right, and center. Everything from Foolish Mortals all the way down to You'll Be Back is all crammed into this movie. We have appearances by pretty much all of the ghosts that you would expect to see. We have the hitchhiking ghosts showing up. We have portraits that are shown. We see the stretching room. We have these really, really cool moments that if you've been on the ride are going to feel familiar and you're going to enjoy those references. But if you haven't been on the ride, nothing feels shoehorned in that it feels out of place. You are going to feel that every single moment in this film is thought out to the extent that, hey, our fans are going to love it, but if you're just coming with your family to see a Haunted Mansion movie and have some fun with your kids, you're going to enjoy it and you're not going to get lost anywhere in the plot. What worked really well for me is that, I don't want to give too much about the film away, but there are some really clever moments of the mansion needing to draw people in at certain times and then trying to get rid of them at the same time. So there is a lot of play back and forth between which ghosts are helping or hindering. Where they move out into the real world is really interesting, and the interactions that they have with the characters that keep bringing them back to the Haunted Mansion or try and keep them away from the Haunted Mansion, depending on what needs to happen in that specific scene, was a lot of fun. And really, I think that's where they maybe could have done a bit to slice the runtime a bit. There was quite a bit of fetch questing and a bit of back and forth that did take you out of the action of the Haunted Mansion for a substantial portion of this film. And while it was fun to see the ghosts reacting and dealing with the real world and seeing the characters dealing with them in an environment outside of the mansion, where the movie was strongest was where we were exploring the mansion with the characters, getting down to the central crux of the issue and what the main mystery was that had to be solved in order to resolve the issue in the mansion. We do lose that for a little bit in this film, and I think that's where a bit of the runtime could have been cut off. There's a bit of shoehorning of some scenes into the plot that feel not 100% necessary. That kind of feels like mysteries for the sake of mysteries to pad the film a little bit, because it feels like they maybe didn't quite trust the premise of just basing a movie off of a ride, and they should have, because the moments where you are traveling through the mansion, where you are seeing the ghosts, where you're seeing the characters interact with the ghosts in a format that is visible to you, because basically in the first part of this film, the reason that they can see the ghosts is because the main character has developed this camera that has a spectral lens that allows them to see ghost particles and reflects off the ghosts, and they can see the ghosts there. So that was quite fun to see, and it did give you a feeling of being on the ride when you're seeing other people's ride-throughs or the photos that are taken on your ride when you go through the attraction. It did give you that kind of feeling for certain scenes, but at the end of the day, it also gave them a lot of freedom to intimate that a ghost was there without actually having to show you. And those portions of the film where they are telling and not showing start to bring it down. You know, that is the central rule of filmmaking: show, don't tell. But ultimately, it's a fun night out. If you're going to go see a movie this weekend, you're not feeling like the heaviness of Oppenheimer, you're not feeling like the zingy overbearingness of Barbie, this is a nice middle ground for you to take your family and your friends to and just go and lose yourself for a 2-hour romp through the Haunted Mansion. I think Disney have done a pretty good job with this, and I think that ultimately it's gone back to its roots in a way that Disney should be aiming to do more often. Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought about this film. Are you excited to see it? What are your thoughts on the trailer? And of course, have you been on the attraction? And if you have, where did you go? I went to Phantom Manor in Paris, and I'm hoping to go to the version in Tokyo next year. Let me know your Haunted Mansion experiences, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video.